Everybody. This is Aditya Aryan from the Foundation for Democratic Reforms, and today I'm sitting with Dr. JP to try and understand what's happening with the corruption charges against Adani in United States of America. Right? Good morning, Dr. JP.
Morning, Aditya.
Yeah, sir. Let's make sense of how this is unfolding in America, because it's still an active case as we speak. This is a foreign country that is leveling some charges against a business in India. And this is weird because the Indian government or the Indian agencies have not been able to find anything.
Absolutely. In the aftermath of Watergate crisis, which forced Nixon to resign as president, American legislature went into a hyperdrive and they decided to clean up the act. As part of that process, they brought in what is called Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA, whereby if an American enterprise or a businessman bribes a foreign official, obviously in furtherance of their business interests, they made it a crime in America. It was very unusual at that time because habitually for these rich countries to establish businesses in poor countries to get the license or permit or approval or whatever, bribes were changing hands. It was a very widely known fact, though it may not always be proven. So they decided to shut that door. And therefore they said, the American entrepreneur who bribes a foreign official, he'll be tried for a criminal offense, and some people were tried and jailed. Lockheed was a very famous case where a Japanese prime minister was bribed, and the prime minister lost his job in Japan too. Now, then American entrepreneurs brought pressure on Europe, because they were all the rich countries club in those days, 1970s. So if America alone is handicapped like this in investment, but Europe is free to bribe wherever they wanted, they are losing opportunity. America built pressure. Therefore, European Convention Against Corruption came, along with the European Union. Together, they brought pressure on the United Nations. That's how UN Convention Against Corruption came. Now, that is the basis of many legislations in many countries, including our own Lokpal, etc. Lokpal, Lokayuktha laws, and so on and so forth. And therefore, this is probably the first time when they applied this jurisdiction creatively. Not only is an American enterprise guilty if they bribe somebody, but because in this case Adani has apparently raised resources in the American capital market, and as a part of the conditions, they have to say that they adhere to the FCPA norms, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act norms, and therefore there are certain ethical guidelines. They must have given a signed affidavit or whatever. Now they found that there is corruption, and therefore, because they raised money abroad, and they said they fulfilled the norms of FCPA, but they violated that, they said there's a conspiracy to defraud the American stock market, American investors and others, and therefore they are now charged. It's an interesting case, but it's a good opportunity for us. It's a very good opportunity for us. As you said rightly, if America could gather evidence, fairly precise evidence it appears, about the interactions between Indian officials, mostly senior political functionaries in various states, and the entrepreneur who raised the money in the capital market in America, they could get evidence while sitting in America, evidence of Indian origin. It is a dismal picture for the Indian investigative agencies, anti-corruption agencies at the state level or the CBI at the national level. With all our talk, obviously there is no serious effort to unearth corruption or to prosecute them. Now this is now the time for us to wake up. We have to now understand what to be done.
So exactly my next question, why do you think this is India's inability to hold corporates accountable? We need an American investigation to tell us, hey, look, there is bribery going on. Why are Indian corruption agencies able to do it?
Sadly, I wish I could say that this is a one-off case, or there is a particular enterprise or a particular functionary or a particular party or government is guilty of corruption. I can say without fear of serious contradiction that our whole electoral system is founded on corruption. Even if individually a head of the government is honest, and there are quite a few very honest individuals, institutionally you have to be corrupt in order to sustain the political system. About 90% of the expenditure incurred in many states in elections is illegitimate and unaccounted, both. Only 10% is legitimate, sometimes accounted, sometimes unaccounted. All this electoral bonds issue, it actually missed the point. It was about the accounted expenditure, legitimate expenditure. So when the expenditure is legitimate, there was an effort to make it accountable. And in order to give incentive, they decided to give anonymity. It's a wrong thing in principle. But that's really beside the point. It's all about legitimate expenditure for electioneering. The moment it comes to the party coffers officially, they're going to spend it only for legitimate purposes, legitimate campaign. The real challenge of India is not that. It is the illegitimate expenditure for vote buying and other nefarious activities. Now, recently we had elections along with Lok Sabha in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Telangana Assembly election, which were held a few months before that, they cost about 30 to 40 crores per candidate, major candidate, per assembly segment. Similar amounts were spent, 30 to 40 crores per assembly segment, per candidate in the Andhra Pradesh election that were held with Lok Sabha. Now, one of the states that was implicated is Andhra Pradesh, the then Andhra Pradesh government and the high functionaries in the government. We're talking about 1750 crore rupees, very precise amount is given at the rate of 25 lakh rupees per megawatt. That seems to be the standard rate, cash and carry kind of a business. Now, when that is the case, we must do both the things. One, we must now use this as an opportunity to go after the criminals, from the entrepreneurs who bribed the public officials and political parties, and the functionaries in government who took the bribes. Both must be vigorously prosecuted. This is an opportunity. Forget who are the individuals involved. It may hurt some people. Yes, it's true. Other people, there is no evidence. These people are caught. Therefore, we normally think, hey, what about others? Everybody is taking money, but why only go after them? But somewhere, when you want to clean up the system, you must begin somewhere. Two, that's not enough. You must actually remove the political incentive for illegitimate expenditure. You must look at the electoral system and politics. Let's take one by one. The first one, we already have a Lokpal law. It's a fact that it's made colorless, orderless, and tasteless. Nobody knows what's happening. There is an institution on paper. But the template is good because the law is a sound one. You must have also a Lokayukta institution created by the Lokpal Act, by the Parliament. Because though Lokayukta is about the state functionaries and therefore it's a state subject, the Constitution is very clear. The Constitution says if a law is made in pursuance of any international treaty or convention, then the Parliament automatically gets jurisdiction on that subject, irrespective of whether it is state subject or union subject in the 7th schedule. That's the reason why we have a Right to Information Act applicable to the whole country. That's the reason why many other laws like, money laundering and benami properties, etc., these laws are made for the whole country, not merely for federal government officials or something. Therefore, here too, it's a perfect case. At that time, actually, on behalf of Lok Satta movement, I made a strong plea. But somehow the political system was not inclined. So they simply added one section. The states also may have Lokayukta. That's all. Now, on par with Lokpal, exactly in the same manner, let Lokayukta be chosen. For instance, with the Chief Minister, opposition leader, and Chief Justice being involved in the selection of the Lokayukta institution. The second thing is, you give the same powers as the case of Lokpal. The third thing is, you also make sure that confiscation of properties is mandatory in all cases of proven corruption. It's not merely the proceeds of corruption that are benefiting an individual. Disgorging them, that is not enough. If there is a fear that you will lose everything, your whole property, your whole assets, then there is a chance that corruption will come down. Otherwise, the incentive to be corrupt is far greater than the fear of corruption. And one other thing I believe we have to take care is, bring the Chief Minister under the Lokpal, not Lokayukta. Earlier also we argued, the Administrative Reforms Commission of which I was a member, we strongly argued that the Prime Minister must be taken out of Lokpal. For whatever reason, they brought the Prime Minister in, but there were safeguards. The two safeguards in their case were, In respect of international matters, etc., you cannot investigate a prime minister, security, international matters, etc. B, unless two-thirds of the full Lokpal decides, you cannot launch an investigation. And C, any investigation like that shall be in camera. So these are the safeguards provided under the law. Chief Minister, similarly, it's inappropriate to investigate the Chief Minister at the state level. Bring the Chief Minister in this law under the Lokpal. If you do these things, and if you also have a similar provision as applicable to CBI director, I don't know if people are aware, is appointed by a committee of the Prime Minister, Chief Justice, and leader of opposition. We have for the ACB, Anti-Corruption Bureau in the states, a similar provision. If these provisions are there, then if you vigorously launch prosecution, in this particular case, you start this. This is a test case. Now, plenty of evidence is available now abroad. Very precise, granular evidence is there. I'm sure FBI will cooperate if Indian government and the states, they want the information, if only they really are serious about curbing corruption. And therefore use that as a starting point and investigate vigorously and prosecute vigorously and very quickly. If necessary, appoint a special court. But that's not enough. The real challenge is how do you remove the incentive in politics? And that is the illegitimate expenditure in politics. Our first past the post system on the one hand, because one more vote means you win, one less vote means you lose. So it's a competitive bidding process for votes in the election. All parties now feel compelled. Let me be very candid. In many states, if a party or their candidate do not want to distribute money, they can kiss the opportunity of election goodbye. They will lose the election, for sure. It is that bad. Therefore, we should no longer think of it as individual criminality. It is a systemic problem. Change the electoral system from the first past proposed to some form of modified proportional representation, making sure that the party with the largest number of votes has a large number of bonus seats so that it is a stable government. But the incentive of the party and the candidates is altered radically. It is the overall percentage of votes of the party in the state and the country, not individual constituency, the plurality of vote. Once that is changed, it doesn't matter how disproportionate it is, how much of bonus seats you give to the largest party. It doesn't hurt us. But we must eliminate this incentive for bribing the voters. Right now, let's face it, that's going on. And it will not stop in India until the political culture matures. That will take another 30, 40, 50 years. It will not happen overnight in a poor country when already it's institutionalized. In fact, it is spreading all over the country. In addition to that, the candidate choice is not left to party bosses. Parties are actually democratic. The leaders are chosen by an election. And the candidates are chosen by some elective process within the party, not the whim of a party leader. Then that will strengthen it. So this is actually a wonderful opportunity. What is seen by many as a source of shame because America exposed our underbelly of the soft underbelly of our system is actually an opportunity. We are a large country, a country rich in tradition and culture, a country which is very proud of our democracy. While there are many flaws, we also are doing a remarkable job in running a democracy in a poor country with so much of diversity, so much of peace and peaceful transfer of election. And therefore, if there are warts like this, with there are problems, let us honestly explore them and address them. We shouldn't try to conceal this, push it under the carpet and pretend everything is okay. That's not in the interest of the country. Here is a golden opportunity. We must take advantage of it.
So just trying to understand, because I have the Lokpal here and it sounds on paper a fairly good law, right? The 2014 government was ousted because of corruption charges. Lokpal is on paper, immediate to what's happening. Why do you see Lokpal not working? What's the problem?
An institution is only as good as the functionaries are willing to work. Now, whether it's a selection committee of Lokpal in which opposition leader and chief justice are members, whether they have done a diligent job to ensure that the best people, fearless people, and competent people who would actually unearth corruption in a very proactive manner and help the country are the chosen. And two, once they are there, whether the functionary is appointed so are utilizing the provisions of the law to the fullest extent and then serve the country well. See, the Election Commission from the beginning had the tradition, right from Sukumar Sen, and people like Sessions made it stronger further. And therefore, there is a culture, there's a tradition. And if you don't establish that culture of a very strong institution that enjoys the credibility and the public support, then it will be just another office. And this is the first Lokpal institution created. I don't know what is happening. I don't think public is privy to what is happening. That's not a very happy situation. It became, therefore, a colorless, orderless, and tasteless institution. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, but ultimately, when there is monumental corruption in the country in high places, there is no feeling, there's no perception that Lokpal institution is making a significant difference. And that's a sad thing. After all that agitation and public outcry, and a unanimous law enacted in Parliament, remember,
Yes.
a rare case of unanimity in 2013 and 14. Now is the opportunity to strengthen that institution, to make it actually function, to have a genuine public debate about corruption, both the legal aspects of it, how to punish corruption, but equally important, perhaps even more important, how to eliminate the incentive for corruption through political reform.
So, sir, do you see the investigation happening? So, the final call is that the Indian government or the Indian state should have an active investigation.
Aditya, ultimately, the constitutional functionaries at the union and state level and the statutory functionaries must do their bounden duty because that's the oath they have taken. And B, if they fail to do so, it is for the legislatures to take a strong view. C, if they fail to do so, it is for the public, the civil society and general public, in a responsible way, in a constructive way, in a positive way, utilize all the resources available, including the mass media. The reason why we're having this discussion is to have a meaningful thing. It's not finger pointing, A blaming B, B blaming A. This is the standard Indian staple of politics. We must rise above that. There is a deep, deep crisis in India of corruption. And Lokpal Lokayukta cannot address retail corruption at the grassroots level. That's not the idea. It is about the grand corruption in the political and bureaucratic functionaries at the high level. At least if this is set right, and then if you improve the service delivery and have citizens' charters and decentralized power and accountability, local corruption can be set right too. But if the bosses are corrupt and they are perceived to be corrupt, how can you control corruption locally? That corruption touches the citizens. But that corruption cannot be controlled unless you are perceived to be non-corrupt, unless people have faith in the system. And I'm sure many of our leaders of various political parties want a clean system. They're personally clean people. Not everybody is a corrupt and dishonest person in government, both in bureaucracy and politics, but they are compelled to partake indirectly or condone it for political compulsions. Now we have to change that. Here is an opportunity. And then economy also will grow. Now, for instance, there is a real danger that America or Europe or maybe together, they will take a call that when there is corruption of this magnitude, we discourage you from investing because you will be prosecuted in America or Europe. Now, if that signal goes very strongly, there's a perception that in India there's monumental corruption and there's a danger of somebody going to jail, who will invest at the risk of going to jail? So it's also important for economic growth. So in many ways, this is an opportunity. Let's take this opportunity, grab it with both hands and convert a crisis for the country in terms of our image, in terms of stock market and other things, into an opportunity to reshape the country's future.
Thank you, Dr. JP. This was Dr. JP and what he sees as an opportunity to probably change India and the corruption in India. Thank you.